Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with MedTech Innovator. Everybody ready? Right? So, welcome, everybody. I'm Paul Grand. I'm the CEO of MedTech Innovator. MedTech Innovator is the industry's non-profit global accelerator for medical device, digital health, and diagnostic technologies. Our mission is to improve the lives of patients by accelerating the growth of companies that are transforming the healthcare system. So, value-based care. We've heard a lot about that today. We actually had a great presentation on the new value framework that AdvaMed put together. We actually spent several days ourselves embracing the value framework and using that to drive a series of workshops that we've done over the past few days. But value-based care is here to stay. We have to improve outcomes, we have to improve quality, we have to improve efficiency, and at the same time, lower costs. So that is a high bar. And that's what we're here to do at MedTech Innovator. We are here to provide the industry with the ability to find the innovators, no matter where they may be around the globe, to accelerate those technologies so that they get to the market faster, better, stronger, whatever word you want to use. We want these companies to reach the market. These products are needed by the whole industry, and that will let us transform healthcare. And I like to think of MedTech Innovator as a MedTech time machine, not a hot tub time machine, but a MedTech time machine. And what I mean by that is MedTech Innovator gives us the ability to meet with companies 6 months, a year, sometimes longer, earlier than we typically would. And I say we, meaning the industry. So whether it's a customer, a value analysis coordinator, whether it is a provider, whether it's a manufacturer who someday may be the partner for this company, or the investor who invests in the technology, we like to see them as early as possible so we can fix all those mistakes before we see them. And that's why I call this the MedTech time machine. This is the MedTech Innovator timeline. We are in an incredible rush to run through the year. I mean, it feels like we've been doing this year for, I think, 2 years already. We started back in February with 600 companies applying to be part of this year's competition. We moved on after a selection period of several months to invite companies to pitch. And we had them pitch all over the United States and in Dublin, Ireland at David Kassick's conference, the MedTech Strategist Summit. So we had all these companies pitch us. We had 150 companies pitch us in this process. So out of 600 companies that applied, we actually traveled around and met with 150 companies, which is just an insane task, I have to admit. But it was a lot of fun. We literally were in a different city every single week. And sometimes 2 cities every single week. And incredibly, a lot of the people in this audience flew around with us to those cities and went to those pitch events. And I really have to thank you guys for doing that. So in that process, we met a number of companies. I'm going to tell you all about them. After we went through that process, we rushed back and we spent a couple weeks going through all of the feedback from all these pitch sessions. And we picked 2 groups of companies. We picked a 50-company pool for our showcase and a 20-company pool for our accelerator, which I'll tell you a little bit in a minute. So this is where we are on the timeline. We are now here in June. It's incredible to be here, incredibly exciting because this was the kickoff for our accelerator program. So we spent the past 2 days with the companies behind me and many of the people who are here in this audience talking to these companies, learning about their value propositions, giving them feedback, going through workshops, and just having a lot of fun. But these companies are really the cream of the crop, and you're going to learn more about them shortly. We then move on to our accelerator program, which will be running throughout the summer. It's a virtual program, meaning that we're actually going to be doing webinars and doing other things to work with these companies, give them customized mentorship. And at the end, we all come back together for a second time in person at the MedTech conference in the fall, which you will hear more about. So this is MedTech Innovator in the fall at the MedTech conference. You're looking at last year, so you're seeing the winner of last year's competition, Jamie Haggard, who's somewhere here in the room. Jamie, there he is. sitting next to Greg King, who was our 2014 winner. Nice to have you back. We actually had an alumni dinner the other day, which was awesome. We had a bunch of our winners there, as well as other companies from our program. But this is the end product that you're looking at here. So the finals of the program last year, you can see the audience. This is the largest audience of industry leaders in North America that we get to do this in front of. And again, up on the main stage in front of the whole conference. Very exciting. So we hope you'll join us. That's going to be at the end of September 25th through 27th in San Jose. So it's you just got to hop on either the bus or an Uber or whatever, and just go a little south, or a train, and go to San Jose, and you'll be able to see. You'll be part of this conference, which is extremely exciting. Our supporters are really the reason we're here. Obviously, we're doing this to improve the lives of patients, as I mentioned. But beyond that, we could not do that without the support of our partners. MedTech Innovator was founded with support from Johnson & Johnson and RCT Ventures, the firm that I spent almost 12 years at. Additional support was then provided by Becton Dickinson, who joined us several years ago, so we've been with them for 3 years. Baxter, who's one of our newest supporters, as is Olympus and Zymedica, and the Small Business Association also gave us a grant. So thank you very much for that support. Thank you, everybody. And as I mentioned, this is a nonprofit. We could not do this without that support. So this is the industry's competition and accelerator. This isn't something that we just do off on by ourselves. We survey the industry. We say, what technologies are you looking for? We do this every year. These were the themes that were selected for this year. Every company in our program had to fit into one of these buckets. So this is an industry wish list in terms of technologies that they're looking for. We had an amazing number of applications. As I said, 600 applications. That was an increase from 500 the year before, from 292 the year before that. And the amazing thing is that even with that increase, with that kind of growth, 84% of the companies that were reviewed were still first-time applicants to MedTech Innovator, so we don't have that many repeats. And 81% were new to the person who saw them in person. Actually, the number was even better for the people who reviewed them online. But for our pitch event reviewers, only 1 in 5 companies were a company they'd heard of before. And the interesting thing is we did these in regional ecosystems, and consistently we heard people say, like, I had no idea they were even in our backyard. That's amazing. So we love that. We love seeing new companies. The themes that I mentioned before, we've given you some highlights here on the top themes that we had in the program. Amazingly, 46% of the applications out of the global pool were targeted towards healthcare efficiency, which is not something we would have seen 3 years ago or 4 years ago when we started this program. This is our 5th year in doing this. Chronic disease management was our second highest category of applications, followed by patient safety, closely then tied with consumer healthcare and tech-enabled services. And the thing that's so amazing about consumer healthcare is, again, this is something that wasn't on any of our radars a couple of years ago. Some of you may have had it on your radar, but it wasn't on ours. So it's amazing. We had 26 countries, represented in the applications. So we really are a global program. And you can see by the pie charts where these companies tend to fit. So a good number of them are preclinical. Some have paying customers. And in terms of funding stage, it's dominated by seed and Series A. And what I think is so exciting about that is we spend so much time hearing about the lack of innovative startups. I hear it from investors, I hear it from providers, I hear it from all sorts of people, and they'll say, like, boy, where are these innovative startups? And I can tell you that we just saw 600 of them this year, most of which were new to us. So they're definitely out there. The problem is they're everywhere. And I know most of you guys aren't going to go to 26 countries and go visit these companies. So we have to go out and do the work. We find these companies, we scour the ecosystem, and then we use all of the collective intelligence of people in this room to review those applications and decide which companies advance in our program. So as I mentioned before, this is where we are in our process right now. We've selected the 50 companies who will be in the showcase at the MedTech conference in the fall. We've selected 20 companies that will be part of our accelerator program. They're standing behind me. It's a hint. And we also will be advancing towards our grand prizes at the end of the program at the MedTech conference, where I'm proud to say we will give away $500,000 to the winners this year of non-dilutive funding. A little applause for that, right? That's pretty awesome. And I can tell you, for some of these companies, they can hit milestones on that. So this is significant, and we're very excited about it. The way we evaluate companies is in 3 buckets. We have value, execution, and momentum. We spent the last 2 days focused on value. And again, we use the AdvaMed value framework that they put together with Deloitte. We spent a ton of time working through all those companies' value propositions. And we wanted to make sure that we recognize the different factors that go into value, and that we spend a lot of time challenging the companies on those, because it's the thing that really stops companies from succeeding today. We all have our stories, and I've heard them many times, as have you, of all those companies who fund their companies to the point where they can get regulatory approval and maybe a little bit of market traction, and then they go before a value analysis committee who says, I need more data. And the company doesn't have the evidence. So again, in the MedTech Time Machine at MedTech Innovator, we give these companies a lot of feedback early on to say, you're going to need more evidence than you've already gathered, or come up with a strategy using the funding you have to gather that evidence. We then move on later in the season to execution. That will be at the MedTech Conference. We'll have an execution award competition. And then finally, we'll evaluate our companies based on the momentum, the wind behind their back, because we want to make sure these companies have what it takes to succeed after our program. And those will be the ones that will make it to our finals. So the MedTech Innovator companies, as I said, I'm proud to announce, are the logos you see up here on the screen. This is a broad field of companies covering all sorts of different areas. We're going to meet them all, literally meet them all in a second. I should go back, sorry, prematurely. So all of these companies had the opportunity to spend time with our reviewers and our mentors over the last 2 days. We spent a lot of time with them on value. And in that process, we got to really know these technologies. And part of that process was to choose 4 companies to compete on the stage for you today for a $25,000 prize that you will be choosing. You'll be voting for the winner. Not our judges, not us, although we'll all get 1 vote. But you guys will be picking the winner, which is really which makes this the industry's competition. And the thing that I'm so excited about is all these companies pretty much flew in. There's maybe a couple companies from the Bay Area. Almost every one of these companies flew in to be here. And they came not only from all over the United States, they came from Ireland, they came from London, they came from Paris. These companies really put in the effort, and they really spent the time that was needed to evaluate them properly. And they did a lot of homework in advance, and I'm really proud of all of them. So as I said, I wanted to quickly run through each of these companies. We only could choose 4 to compete for $25,000, and we didn't think it was fair to not give you a chance to meet those companies. So quickly, I've asked each of these companies, do we have the microphone? Is there a mic coming? Okay, good. So I've asked each of these companies to literally give you a 30-second pitch on their company. I'm going to just call them out in order here real quick. So first we have Vertacor. You're going to hear from Paul Leak, who once wrangled a 12-foot alligator. Take it away, Paul.
All right, thank you. I'm Paul Leak, CEO and co-founder of Vertacor Technologies. And when I was a specialist in the U.S. Army, I had a training accident, and I was given 2 choices, either a spinal fusion or live with the pain. I chose to live with the pain for about 10 years before getting with a fellow back pain sufferer and inventing something to actually fix our backs. The Vertacor lift safely decompresses your spine from S1 to T5, safely, conveniently, effectively. No drugs, no surgery, pain-free. Thank you.
No opioids. Good job, Paul. All right, next up, Alleviant Medical. So Jacob, who lived on a glacier for 4 months. Go ahead, Jacob.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Kriegel. I'm a cardiothoracic surgery fellow and CEO of Alleviant Medical, where our mission is to lift the burden of heart failure. Heart failure is a massive clinical and economic burden right now, and patients with heart failure have a buildup of pressure in their heart. And right now we have no good way of effectively lowering this pressure. And we're developing a novel, minimally invasive device that for the first time will allow interventional cardiologists to lower this pressure through a simple, low-risk outpatient procedure. We're going to be able to lower their symptoms, keep them out of the hospital, and improve their quality of life. So we're raising our seed round now, and we'd love to fill you in more about how we plan to lift the burden of heart failure. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacob. Next we have Clemence Franck, who had her appendix out when she was 15 years old on a trip here to the States, and somehow bumped into Steve Osterly on a ski trip at that young age.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Clémence Franck. I'm the CEO of Novagray, a company based in France. We have developed the very first test that can identify patients who will develop severe complications after radiotherapy for breast, prostate, and lung cancer. So our tests enable physicians to adapt the treatment to patient sensitivity to avoid those type of complications that you've seen in the screen for high-risk of complication patient, and on the other hand, to reduce both the duration and the cost up to 30% for patients with low risk of complication. So I'd be happy to talk more about the company, so feel free to reach out afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Clémence. Personalizing radiotherapy, which is pretty unbelievable. Next up, we have Celio Medical, Colin McGarvey, who was an Irish national champion cyclist.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colin McGarvey, co-founder of Celio Medical. And you may not guess by my accent, I am the Irish representative. Yeah. Celio Medical have developed a revolutionary technology to eliminate pneumothorax, the leading hospital cost and complication post-lung biopsy. Lung cancer is a leading cancer worldwide, and lung biopsy is the gold standard method of diagnosis. Unfortunately, 1 in 3 patients, that's 33% of patients, suffer from a common and costly complication known as a pneumothorax, a collapsed lung. This complication converts a routine outpatient procedure to one requiring hospital admission and invasive treatment, an average cost of $11,000 per patient. Until now, there's been no effective method of preventing this complication. Celio Medical will eliminate over 120,000 unnecessary hospital admissions with a global healthcare saving of over $1.3 billion. We are now raising our Series A, and if you wish to join Celio Medical on the journey in revolutionizing lung biopsy, please talk to me afterwards. We can have a pint of Guinness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Next in line, next up we have Piyush from Geneticist. He is one of 2 team members who have dropped out of school to pursue this, and 3 team members, who have dropped out of school to do this, and also Mark Cuban is an investor in his company.
So 24-year-old walks into the emergency department with chest pain, healthy athlete, healthy as could be, negative ECG, a couple hours later, negative first troponin, a couple hours later, negative second troponin. Now we're 8 hours in, patient is ruled out, dies at home with an acute myocardial infarction. He's one of 8.5 million people a year in the United States who come with chest pain to the emergency room every year. We're geneticists. I'm the founder and CEO, Piyush Srivastava, and we've developed a faster, safer, and a more accurate way to triage patients with chest pain in the United States. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much. Give it to James. So James Roberts, next up, who was a winner of a Dyson Award for Young Innovators.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Roberts, and I'm one of the founders of Mum Incubators, based in London, UK. Prematurity is now the largest killer of under 5s throughout the entire world. Lack of sufficient or timely incubation technology means that many of these children die.
Keep going.
I keep going, guys.
Let's go.
This is fine. So basically here at Mum, we're developing a system that is less than 10% the cost of conventional systems, whilst being able to be collapsed down to about a 20th of the size, basically a briefcase, with potentially better hygiene than even the most sophisticated systems. We are finally giving access and real transportability to this much needed technology for rural, underserved, and emerging healthcare systems. If you think what we're doing is important, then please come speak to us afterwards. There you go.
Thank you very much, James.
Go get
the
the
mic to Brandon. So next up, Brandon Masterson, who is so persistent that he once won an award for it.
That's right. So I'm Brandon, CEO of Tomorrow, and we're taking on the top killers in the U.S., starting with smoking and going after obesity and other behaviors later on. We're doing this with a digital therapeutic or do-it-yourself mobile program that's been tested in randomized controlled trials, developed with Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center, proven in over 6 randomized controlled trials, and has reduced costs up to 5 times for the payers, health plans, employers, and states, or they can engage up to 5 times as many people into their programs. We'd love to partner up, and of course, we're fundraising too.
Of course. I want you to give it to Miriam. So Miriam Sadecki from British Columbia, who did not want to start a company, but she was busy doing PhDs and all these other things, and so somehow she managed to do it all and have it all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mariam. I'm CEO and co-founder of MedOptima. I'm sure you all have heard about predictive analytics, clinical decision support tools, GE Predict, IBM Watson, all cool systems out there. We have made one for dermatopathology, and it's called Derm Engine. It's easy to remember, Engine for dermatology. And we implemented it in clinical settings, skin cancer centers around the world, to make sure we have millions of data points to build the best system. We made a clinical software, made it scalable and affordable and very cool and beautiful that our physicians loved it. Now today we are looking for partners who actually share our vision with us and can join us to drive our dream and make a difference. Happy to chat if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pass the mic on down. So next up, former professional baseball player Chris Ennis for RX Assurance.
Thank you, Paul. RX Assurance is developing the efficiency and clinical decision support tools for opioid prescribers. Our prescribers thus far have saved more than 12,000 hours by using our solution. In addition to that, we're also working with first responder departments on offering tools on how to reverse overdoses with naloxone kits. I'm proud to say thus far we have saved 187 lives in the state of Colorado, and we're just getting started. As of this morning, we're officially in California. Now we have an 1,100 physician institute here in the Bay Area, and we're proud to get started here in your backyard. Thank you.
Very good. Pass it on down to Justin. Justin from Palm, who once built a canoe from scratch.
Hi, I'm Justin Hellman, and my team at Palm is on a mission to solve excessive sweating for patients, a condition that isn't often talked about, can be really impactful for them. Our first product addresses excessive hand sweating by applying a low level of electrical current to the skin to deactivate sweat glands safely and for up to several weeks at a time. We provide value to our patients by offering a highly effective and affordable home use device that allows them to shed their embarrassment and focus on the task at hand instead of their sweat. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Justin. So in our final group, we have Carla Leibowitz, who got her scuba license at age 12 for Arteris.
Hi. Arteris makes powerful, easy-to-use software to help clinicians interpret medical images far faster, more accurately, and more efficiently. We have the first FDA-cleared solution that combines cloud and AI technology. And this is important because we can do what it used to take physicians 45 minutes in just seconds, and we can do it just as accurately. With this technology, we have already prevented unnecessary surgeries and created significant efficiencies at hospitals. We're now raising a Series B to create similar solutions to detect, measure, and track tumors in different parts of the body. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Shyam Natarajan, who is from Avenda Health, and he actually incredibly was incorporated in the last couple weeks, even though he has a working product and clinical data. So tell us about Avenda.
Hi, I'm Shyam Natarajan, president and co-founder of Avenda Health. Approximately 1 in 7 men are diagnosed with prostate cancer per year, and they have a tough decision to make, either surveillance or radical surgery, which has horrible quality of life complications. We at Avenda Health have developed a male lumpectomy that can precisely, safely treat and ablate a prostate tumor in a clinic setting under local anesthesia while performing at lower cost, faster, and available for use by urologists. We're Avenda Health, curing prostate cancer in the clinic.
Thank you very much. Next up, Abreos Biosciences, Bradley Messmer, who has the ponytail that I really want.
Thank you. So Abreos Biosciences is a San Diego company developing precision dosing solutions for expensive biologic drugs. Our laboratory, point of care, and even point of patient products enable our pharma partners to differentiate their products through better outcomes and reduce side effects. Because after all, if your therapeutic costs as much as a Ferrari, it really should have a speedometer.
Very good. All right, next up, Oso VR, Justin Barad, who claims to work with an alter ego of Bustin Gerard on TaskRabbit.
Secret alter ego. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Barad. I am a former game developer turned bioengineer turned orthopedic surgeon and now co-founder and CEO of Oso VR, the medical device training platform. I want you guys to look at the picture over here on the left. That's an actual intra-op photo of 2 surgeons with an instruction manual folded out on the patient because they're uncomfortable with the device they're using. One, that patient was very disappointed to find out that was going on, I assume. And two, I don't think they're going to use that device again, because that's something no surgeon wants to be in the position to do. At Oso VR, we are building a virtual reality training platform that will allow you to shorten your commercialization time, increase adoption, and most importantly, improve patient safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. So we're gonna pause here. You can just put the mic down, perhaps, in the chair. We're gonna pause here because the rest of the companies are the companies that we've selected to compete for 25 grand today, and you're gonna hear all about them. So I wanna give a hand again to this whole group. You guys are amazing, and you can see how hard it is to pick these companies, because every one of them, every one of these guys, every one of these women and men deserve to be up on this stage and to be competing for this award, and we just literally only have so much time. I don't think Casey would let me go until 8 o'clock tonight. So, so let's go ahead then and bring up our judges. So we have 4 judges, and you guys are welcome to go off the stage, except for the 4 who'll be presenting. You guys stick around for a sec. So we're gonna bring up our judges. We have 4 judges. Now again, this competition, you're choosing the winner, so what do our judges do? Our judges are up here to help these companies, ask them questions, drill into their stories a bit. Let's bring them up one at a time. First, Janelle Paul Robinson making her return after 2 years to the Wilson Sonsini stage, except last time she was the Value Analysis Coordinator for UCLA Health, and now she works for MedTech Innovator. So it was my secret way. Sorry, go ahead. Applause. It was my secret way of getting her to go from reviewing 10 applications to 600.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Janelle. Have a seat. Next up, we have Jennifer Kozak from Johnson & Johnson. Come on over. So Jennifer's been with our program for years, as has Johnson & Johnson. We're extremely lucky to have her. Jennifer flew around to some of the cities I was talking about and literally came with us to go see these companies, which is just amazing. Like, we literally were like in Houston one day, San Francisco the next day, whatever, and I can't believe she did that. Thank you for doing that. Next up, we have Amy Kobe from Baxter Ventures. So again, one of our newer sponsors. Amy and her team have been very engaged. Great to have you here. They met with our companies. They had a big presence in Chicago. And did a great job at helping to evaluate companies in the program, so extremely lucky to have them on board. And then last but not least, Praveen Raja, who joins us from Amgen, of all places. And we're extremely lucky to have Praveen. Praveen and his team are really focused on digital health, so, so that was great, but he has a very broad background and was able to give our companies guidance in all sorts of areas. So extremely lucky. You guys are really important, but you don't get to vote except for one vote. So that's the audience's job. So we're thrilled to have you here. I want to now introduce our 4 competitors for today who are vying for $25,000 in the MedTech Innovator Value Award. So we evaluated these companies based on their value propositions, and that's what we want you to do as well. You're going to hear all of them give these great pitches, but when they're done, we want you to be thinking about the clinical and the clinical value, the value they have to patients, workflow improvements, cost savings, all the things, efficiency, the things we've talked about at this conference at length. So I want you to be thinking about them in that way, because we're going to ask you to vote based on that. So here are our 4 companies that will be competing today. So we have Allotrope Medical, Albert Wang. We have Day Zero Diagnostics, John Lee. Eximus Surgical, Kristen Johnson, and Nanoware, Venk Varadin. So congratulations to you guys all for being in this competition. We're excited to have you up here on the stage. I'm going to ask everybody to take off except for Albert. So go ahead and take off. Albert, are you mic'd up yet? Do you have a microphone? I do not. All right, so we need to mic up Albert. So come on over. Thank you, by the way, to this unbelievable AV team who we put every year through these ridiculous paces to change things constantly through the program. And they do an amazing job. So a hand for the AV team, who kind of does the impossible with us every year. So Albert, so here's the drill. Here's how it works. We have 10 minutes per company. There's a clock back there that's going to count down 10 minutes. All right. You have 5 minutes, hopefully, just to stick to your presentation. We try to get people to stick to 5. We do a 10-minute block. If you run over that 5 minutes, it'll eat into your time for Q&A. We hope you'll do a really good job of giving these guys a chance to ask you questions, because they came prepared. They've been studying you. So here's the clicker to advance, and the countdown clock will start now.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, my name is Albert Huang. I'm the founder and CEO of Allotrope Medical, where we take the capability of safe and precise ureter detection and put it in the surgeon's hands. We're a team of individuals that are clinical leaders as well as MedTech veterans with a track record of success and decades of experience. Our technology focuses on identification and protection of the ureter. This is a structure that sits within the lower abdomen inside the body, and it drains urine formed in the kidney down into the bladder. Identification and protection of this structure is both critical and challenging for the many physicians that operate in this part of the body. Ureter identification is necessary in millions of procedures done each year, including hysterectomies, colon resections, and cancer operations, among many others. And unfortunately, injury to this structure is costly. Of the 3 million procedures performed each year in the US that require you to identify the ureter, up to 2% of these result in some amount of injury, each costing about $54,000 to the healthcare system. On top of that, the patient needs more operations, longer hospital stays, and in general, poor patient outcomes. On top of that, there's about a $3.2 billion annual burden to the healthcare industry for this issue. There's 2 standard techniques that are used right now in the operating room to identify and hopefully protect the ureter, and unfortunately, they're both archaic and, quite frankly, ineffective. The first is having a urologist come in at the beginning of the case and place a brightly colored piece of plastic backwards from the bladder up towards the kidney. This is an expensive procedure. It requires additional OR resources and OR time, and journal articles have shown that it doesn't actually decrease the incidence of injury. The other method is having the surgeon spend significant OR time dissecting through tissues, pinching structures, trying to generate contraction to identify the ureter. This, by nature, can be high risk in some cases. It's time-consuming, and it's also imprecise. So we at Allotrope Medical provide a paradigm shift in how you identify and protect the ureter. With our handheld single-use device that's battery-powered, we generate a precise electrical impulse with a single push of a button that results in a safe and reliable stimulation and a full-length visible contraction of the ureter that makes it easy to see in the operating field. In comparing our technology with the other existing systems, you can see that we have a system that has no injury risk and doesn't require any additional procedures or OR time, and it's extremely precise. Here, we have a large animal model where you can see, we'll use our device here on a slightly choppy video, that a single stimulation without making any incision to that part of the body results in a very easily visible full-length contraction of the ureter. We'll do it again here in just a moment. And the stimulation at any point on the ureter results in a full-length, 2-directional contraction each and every time, making it easily visible without having to make an incision. So we're really all about improving healthcare. As I mentioned earlier, there's about a 2% incidence of injury to this structure across the surgical specialties, and this translates to about a $3.2 billion burden. With our technology, if we're able to decrease this by even just 1%, this can result in a huge amount of savings to US healthcare. And a year's worth of allotrope devices used for high-volume procedures such as hysterectomies in a hospital cost about half of that of a single injury. And if we look directly at the cost of it, in procedures such as hysterectomies, our device costs about 4% of the reimbursement code, and for procedures such as colon resections, even less. If we want to do a side-by-side comparison with stent placement, like I had mentioned earlier, you can see that along with hardware costs being less, we're bypassing the need for specialists and additional hospital resources. In cases such as minimally invasive colon resections, upwards of 1/3 of the case is spent just trying to find the ureter. And if we can speed up that process, we can make a significant impact on decreasing OR time. And in the end, we're really about improving the patient experience. We want to eliminate additional procedures with our device by eliminating preoperative stent placement and postoperative cystoscopies in some cases. We've got broad physician support, including a past president of the AAGL quoted as saying, "This is an enabling device for all general gynecologists." We've got an established IP portfolio with freedom to operate and patentability memos favorable, and we have expanded IP coverage. We've got a very clear 510(k) regulatory pathway with an appropriate predicate identified and likely no pre-submission clinicals required before we go to FDA. We're moving really quickly, and in our current trajectory, we hope to be on the market and in surgeon hands of the first quarter of 2019. In closing, we're gearing up to seek $2 million for our Series A round, which will take us through the FDA and early market. And we want to continue collaborating and interacting with the OBGYNs, urologists, colorectal and general surgeons in refining our technology. Once again, we're Allotrope Medical, and our value proposition is that we are looking to decrease the incidence of injury for patients in a cost-effective way while improving the surgical experience for the physician and the patient. Thank you.
Great job. All right, so let's take it over to our judges. Judges, take it away. Anyone wants to go first?
So Albert, I have a question for you. So you mentioned that there's a 2% error rate right now with present practice, right? Mm-hmm. So another way of seeing that is that there's a 98% success, right? So have you talked to the marketplace to understand how big of a problem this is in the perception of the users? Do they see this as, okay, I have the problem under control 98% of the time, or do they really focus on the 2% they're trying to solve?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things that we've done is we want to go out and talk to the potential end users. So I have a slide here. We've talked to a bunch of OBGYNs, general and colorectal surgeons. Even if that incidence itself seems low, this is a problem for every single general gynecologist. It's on every single one of their minds when they're operating and doing hysterectomies or working in the pelvis. The same thing for general surgeons that are doing some minimally invasive surgery. They're always worried. They can take out the colon, but they're always worried about finding the ureter. So it's something that needs to be identified every single time.
Yeah, it's just the error rate is 2%, but the technology is applicable in 100% of the cases, right?
Exactly.
That's the clarification.
Correct, yes.
Maybe another question on your technology.
Yeah.
If you could talk a little bit about performance with respect to patient variability and maybe in terms of if the device works with thickened tissues.
Sure, that's also a great question that I get a lot. Our technology, if we're able to load up the video here, works not only in what we call like virgin abdomens, but also situations where there's thickened tissue, if it shows up here. The idea is that you may not be able to fully visualize the ureter itself, but the contractile wave is something you can always follow. So the video that I had up here shows that even in this inflamed abdomen in a porcine model, stimulation of the ureter that penetrates through, you almost see like a mole moving underground. So you'll be able to trace the path of it visually in both directions, more specifically to the left here. So you can follow this wave of contraction, even if you can't see the structure itself, and you can see it moving off into the distance on the left.
Thank you.
Next question.
Albert, how does this technology fit into the current surgical landscape and then also the future surgical landscape?
Yeah, so I wanted to create, as somebody trained in general surgery, I wanted to create a device that not only worked for open procedures, but minimally invasive, which is where I saw a lot of the problems. I wanted something that was also forward-thinking. As we move forward towards devices being on the market that are combination devices for value or cost purposes, and also with the advent of robotic technology, I wanted us to design a system that really, as long as we have a power source and our specific waveform profile, all we need is a bipolar tip. That can be as short as you need it to be. So it can fit onto a robotic arm. Even with things such as cutting-edge natural orifice procedures, we can fit this down the working channel of an endoscope if and when technology goes that way for intra-abdominal procedures.
Hi, Albert. With the elimination of having to place a stent in all of these patients, there's a great not only time value, but obviously there's a value to the patient. But from the healthcare perspective, is there any opportunity or potential opportunity with the elimination of the secondary procedure to be able to move some of the stated procedures from an inpatient arena to either an observational status or even perhaps an outpatient procedure?
Yeah, also a great question. Sort of what the passport of the ASGL said, this is an enabling device. So general surgeons that maybe had been doing open, big incision colon resections their whole lives, as they start learning these new techniques for laparoscopic colon resections, are going to be more comfortable doing those with our technology. So instead of a big incision, you're going to get smaller ones, which we all know translates to shorter hospital stays and better pain control. And we can potentially turn somebody who does hysterectomies open and requires a 2 to 3 hospital day stay to an outpatient procedure because we're improving their confidence and improving their ability to identify the ureter in a reliable way when they're operating in a field where they can't touch the structures like they used to.
Thank you.
Last question. Last question, anybody? Quick.
I was just wondering, do you see any other applications for the technology, or is it just for identification of the ureter? Do you see any other broader applications?
Yeah, this is a question I also get asked a lot. The ureter is smooth muscle. So as we think about the different kinds of pathologies or different disease states that we might be able to work on. Anything that's a smooth muscle structure or organ, we may be able to find a potential application for. So esophageal dysmotility diseases, we can figure out at what level potentially they're functional at, so we can maximize how much we preserve. Same thing with colon for pediatric diseases where there's defunctionalized colon, we can maximize how much we leave behind. Or even situations such as trying to place gastric stimulators. We can now make sure that they're placing these electrodes in exactly the spots that they want to contract in an otherwise not well-moving stomach.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Albert.
Thank you all for listening.
Take that. You got to give that to the next presenter, so I'll have you go off for that. And Albert, by the way, is one of our more stylish guys. Not only is he a surgeon, but he also spent 10 years as a garment designer. So that'll be particularly relevant, by the way, for our next presentation. Actually, our next presentation is, I guess, nanoware. I have it in different order. So nanoware, Venk. Venk, by the way, I just got to say, so this technology, Venk tells us, is his dad's last great idea. But it makes it sound like his dad is gone. His dad is here, and I think in the audience somewhere, right? So where's his dad? There's his dad, waving proudly over there. He is very much with us, but it was his idea. All right, thanks. So same drill, 10 minutes. Watch the clock over there in the corner, and take it away.
Thanks, Paul, and MedTech Innovator team. This is a great opportunity for us. And happy Friday, everyone. My name is Venk Varadhan, co-founder and CEO of Nanoware, based in New York City. Before we get started, can everybody do me a favor? Think about a friend or a family member that might have one or more of the following underlying conditions: hypertension, coronary artery disease, might have had a bypass or a heart attack in the past, or even some more common conditions like sleep apnea or obesity. How many people know someone like that? Those in the front, if you turn around, it's everybody in the room. And unfortunately for those close ones to us, all of those people are at significant risk for the chronic disease phenomenon known as congestive heart failure. I haven't proven it yet, but starting a med tech company can also give you heart failure. But patients that actually, in all seriousness, patients that do have heart failure live a very, very poor quality of life. There's shortness of breath every day when they're decompensating, severe fatigue, and really just incapable of managing their day-to-day tasks. It's really devastating for patients and their families due to recurrent hospitalizations and a poor quality of life because the condition just elevates fluid buildup in the lungs and they have to go to the ER because they can't breathe. And the really sad thing about this is that this disease state is really spiraling out of control. 6 million Americans diagnosed with 700,000 new cases to be added annually. The economic burden is even more gloomy. $31 billion was spent last year in congestive heart failure associated costs. More than 50% of that is taxpayer dollars, $17 billion from Medicare. That is estimated to increase and balloon to $100 billion that we're all going to be responsible for by 2030. And because of this exploding costs and patient growth, the risk burden has shifted from otherwise, other entities and patient management to the providers and the physicians. They're getting financially penalized if their congestive heart failure patients are readmitted to the hospital. So like diabetes and COPD, which we have started figuring out to manage very effectively, CHF doesn't have a cure. It must be managed, and we have to improve that quality of life for patients so they can actually live and not be worried about falling back into the hospital on a weekly or monthly basis. But the problem with the standard of care currently is that it's completely ineffective or too cost prohibitive to manage CHF. On one side of the spectrum, you've got a scale, and it's taking daily weights to measure fluid buildup in your body. If you're gaining weight because fluid's built up in your lungs, you're already too late. That patient is decompensating and probably already on their way to the hospital. And on the other side of the spectrum, you've got a CardioMEMS implantable device, which although it's shown to work very well in alerting on decompensating heart failure in advance, it's $40,000 plus a $50,000 implanted procedure. It's never going to reach the 6 million people because of due to lack of reimbursement. I apologize to any friends from Abbott and St. Jude. We're going to fill that gap with a first-of-its-kind wearable, affordable device, non-invasive, really improve the patient quality of life and improve outcomes most importantly. And it's going to be doing this by addressing the four main stakeholders in this conundrum. The first is patients, the pure benefactor. If we're asking them to manage conditions at home, it's got to be dumb, stupid, simple, easy to use for them. The The next stakeholder, physicians, they've got to be getting daily data that's clean and can offer them actionable insights so they can make management decisions for their patients confidently and very quickly during regular business hours. CMS, it's got to be cost effective all the way down to the Medicaid patient level. And most importantly, hospital providers, 40% of their patients in CHF are coming back to the hospital within 30 days. They are getting financially penalized, and if they don't reduce that 40% number significantly, they're going to go under. Nanoware is addressing these stakeholders by introducing Simple Sense. It's a wearable garment that's going to predict decompensating heart failure weeks before an event would send you to the hospital. How are we doing that? This is a first-of-its-kind device that's capturing 7 different metrics, which is EKG, heart rate variability, respiratory rate, impedance cardiography, thoracic impedance, cardiophenography, and actigraphy, posture and motion. And what this is going to do, this algorithmic cocktail is going to provide a score for the physicians to adequately understand whether their medication treatment is currently working or if they need to intervene with new medication due to decompensation. We're not guessing if this is going to work. Boston Scientific, our friends in Arden Hills, already proved this with the MultiSense HeartLogic trial, but they use an implantable defibrillator, still proving that 75% success rates in identifying decompensating heart failure 2 weeks in advance of an event. We think our algorithm is going to be really better than Boston Scientific because we're using cloth-based sensor technology. We have invented that. It's getting us much better signals, a real not lack of need for high signal processing. It's going to give our raw data set more validity, which will ultimately give our data analytics much more strength. But most importantly, it's cloth. It's going to be greatly adopted by the patients. This is an example of the portal and the data transmission that we're sending to the physicians. But the Simple Sense score on whether they're high priority or low priority will affect medical decisions. Great momentum, milestones under our belt. We've invented the cloth-based sensors, really built a great IP firewall. We've gotten a 510K Class 2 clearance in December for the sensor and a full stack product, and have finished our first cohort of clinical data on CHF patients. I'm the luckiest CEO in the world. This is a 1 in a billion team. It's been really special to do with my father. Two of our clinicians were also lead PIs on the Boston Scientific trial and have brought a lot of expertise to the table. So in closing, the value-based approach, we need to keep people out of the hospital. We need to manage CHF, and we need to do it in a way that patients will love and be easy to use so they can get back to their life. Thank you very much, and happy to open up for questions.
Good job. All right, judges.
Great presentation. I don't know if people can hear. Yeah, this great presentation. Obviously, you're highlighting a very important problem. Lots of solutions in the marketplace. Some would even say crowded, right? Because you have a lot of wearables and other kinds of things. I think the key thing is that this is a loose wearable. It's a garment-based thing. I'm just wondering, I think the key thing to your success is going to be patient adoption, physician adoption. You said that you completed a small study. What insights have you gained about patient experience, physician experience that gives confidence that this is scalable and it's going to be successful in the marketplace?
Thanks, Praveen. That's a great question. That's probably the most important thing as we think about adoption and making a successful product. We're doing 4 cohorts of clinical data collection before our 250-person trial starting next year. In each cohort, we are doing not only signal fidelity and refining of our algorithm, but most importantly, we're taking human factors and usability data each time. So when we adjust the garment, change a material to compressionable cotton, a lighter sort of feel, we're getting great feedback from both our male and our female patients, young and old, all different sizes. We are going to do that through 4 cohorts to continually optimize that device to really be confident that that adoption is going to stick.
Any physician feedback so far?
Yes, actually the physicians that we've talked to, they say if you can actually really do this data, which we're proving on a raw data standpoint, they're most excited about the compliance that the patient will give because it's so much easier. A patch can't do it, wired up electrodes can't do it. The thesis is there, but there's got to be a modality that can offer that type of efficacy.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Bank, great job. You alluded to this a bit in your presentation. Who do you see as your nearest competitive set, and how are you differentiated?
Yeah, great question, Amy. CardioMEMS is probably the standard at the moment, but again, we don't necessarily view them as a direct competitor just because they really can't hit that big portion of the market that we want to go to. There's a new company, Sensible Medical Innovations, that everybody might have heard of. They're doing RF technology to basically determine whether you have a wet lung or not. The problem with that device is it's 25 grand. It's probably going to run into the same reimbursement issues as CardioMEMS. Medtronic tried to do this. Sorry to friends at Medtronic. Tried to do this with the Corventis adhesive. They couldn't get cardiophenography and they couldn't get a strong ICG signal, which is why they were never able to get an FDA alert for decompensating heart failure. And a big part of that is the patch. It's not giving a strong enough vector to really get that strong raw data. Our garment is capturing the largest slice of the lungs, the largest slice of the heart, and because of that nanosensor technology with really effective surface area, the data that's coming through is really, really clean. Thank you.
Great job, Venk. Can you talk about your business model a bit and then also the price point of the technology?
Sure. So the business model right now, if you look at the 7 metrics that we're capturing, there are existing CPT codes for each of those. So if you total up the reimbursement on CPT, you're getting to a total price point of about $700. We produce the garment at lab scale with the Bluetooth functionality and transmission at about $80, $90. We think at scale that'll come down to about 60 or 50. So at $700 for reimbursement to the provider, if we priced at $500, that's still great margins to us. The hospital's pocketing a little bit of money, and I think that's the right place to start. But on our post-market studies, after we really prove outcomes and reduce readmissions, because we're in a bundled payment environment for disease states like this, hospitals may just buy the device up front. But I think we're going to start with the CMS and show that there is payer availability.
Hi, Venk. You are capturing an awful lot of metrics. And so one of my questions to you is maybe you can tell me and tell the crowd a little bit about your clinical validity design, your study design, and how are you going to validate each one of those 7 metrics?
Great question. So the 7 metrics will be a part of each of our cohorts leading up to our clinical study. So we're going to keep collecting that data that goes into our algorithmic cocktail to refine the identification of decompensating heart failure. But in those cohorts, what we're doing is we're following the same 30 to 40 patients. So as we adjust the device from month 1 to month 3 and get those human factors and usability testing that Praveen was talking about, we're also going to be showing data on what's happening at home each time they're using the device, potentially, and most importantly, immediately after an event has happened that's caused an admission. Admissions are happening all the time. We want to put that device on immediately at discharge and keep tracking that patient through the next 9 months before we launch our big study.
Are you working with anyone right now for that? Are you enrolling patients in that? And how many
yes, we're actually, our Chief Medical Officer, John Zimmerman, who was also a PI on the Boston Scientific trial. He runs the largest EP practice in New Jersey at Hackensack Meridian, and we have tested on a nice patient set in his hospital, all sick patients and a control group of healthy patients.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so that's all we have time for, Venk, so thank you very much, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, nice job. All right, next up we have Day Zero Diagnostics. I have to say I'm very excited that Jong is here because he coached his son's baseball Little League team all the way to the Bellevue Little League Championship, and he's missing it. He's missing the regional playoffs just to be here pitching today. So thank you for doing that. It's commitment. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. It's the Bellevue Cups, by the way, if anyone want to follow along somewhere online. So Day Zero Diagnostics, I'm the CEO, and we're combining genome sequencing and machine learning to revolutionize infectious disease diagnosis and treatment. Why does infectious disease diagnosis and treatment need a revolution? Well, it's because the technology that's used as the gold standard for infectious diseases is antiquated. It's based in culture, the same technology that Louis Pasteur did. And even the most modern methods of doing this, which includes things like mass spectrometry, MALDI-TOF, PCR-based diagnostics, use culture as an input source in order to do their diagnostics. So while they may be fast on themselves, they still rely on culture to grow before they can actually run a sample through their diagnostic, and culture doesn't even always grow. What physicians have done in the meantime, because patients decompensate at a rate where their risk of mortality increases 8% per hour when you have a severe infection, something like sepsis. And because the risk of mortality is increasing on the scale of hours and the diagnostic returns a result on the scale of days, what all physicians do is they use empiric therapy. Broad spectrum, hard-hitting antibiotics that are designed to carpet bomb whatever you have. It is not precise, it's not personalized, and it's not timely. As a result, there's toxic side effects. The drugs themselves can be expensive. People spend a long time in the hospital waiting for the diagnostic result to come back. Importantly, it's a practice that actually promotes antibiotic resistance in and of itself. And because of that, it's become increasingly ineffective. This was the practice in infectious diseases for the last 30 years, but we're at a point where that can no longer apply. Antibiotic resistance is a worldwide crisis. It's at a point where we're at a game-changing moment where what's happened in the past is not going to be what happens in the future. We now use superbugs and multi-drug resistant pathogens as the term of art in the field. So our mission at Day Zero Diagnostics is to develop a rapid and comprehensive diagnostic that patients can get treated with the right drug in hours rather than days, on day zero when they're first admitted to the hospital. How do we do that? Well, we're developing a diagnostic that can take a clinical sample like a tube of blood from a bacteremic patient and run it through our process so that you can get both a species ID, but most importantly, the resistance profile in a matter of 5 hours rather than 5 days. And along with that, it generates genomic sequences that enter into our database, which we use for other applications. So how do we do that? Well, we have to develop a bunch of technologies that currently don't exist. We have to have a method for doing bacterial enrichment. What culture really does is it enriches for bacterial cells. And if we're going to skip culture, we need to have a method for doing that that is not dependent on culture. We use commercially available whole genome sequencing platforms. We're not trying to be a sequencing company. We use what's already available. We have an algorithmic approach called Kinome. That's a machine learning algorithm, and it learns and trains off a database that we built from the Mass General Microbiology Lab. So on the bacterial enrichment side, we use a microfluidic approach that combines with proprietary chemistry that delivers 9-log bacterial enrichment. That's approximately what you get by using culture, but we use a size-based sorting method that's microfluidic-based, combined with a selective amplification technique that our scientists have developed. As you all know, sequencing costs have really plummeted like a rock, and what's really important about understanding this is that 5 years ago, when microbiology companies were looking at whole genome sequencing, the conclusion they all reached was it doesn't make sense to try to use whole genome sequencing on this problem. They were using PCR and other approaches, but when you actually think about the scale of time and what's happening with cost and performance and the introduction of faster, cheaper sequencing platforms like the nanopore sequencer, what you find is that this is actually the right window. This is the time to be not too late and not too early for finding a way to apply whole genome sequencing to the problem of infectious diseases. Our algorithm has been tested across 4,000 samples thus far. We're able to call every species that's been in those 4,000 samples. We have greater than 95% accuracy on 34 classes of drug resistance, and those results improve with time. Our original launch target is to get to 30,000 pathogens, not 4,000. And what we've seen on our data is that the more examples we have, the better the results become. The reason we can do this is because we have an exclusive license from the Mass General Microbiology Lab to collect their discards. For the last 2 years, we've had 2 of our team members go twice a week down to the microbiology lab at Mass General and essentially collect their trash. All of the culture isolates that they're about to throw away, we take, and we get the benefit of having their data for phenotypic resistance testing that they've done, and then we do our own sequencing so that we're populating a database that today does not exist. A database, the largest of its kind, that would have 30,000 samples of pathogens along with their genomic sequences. Our target market is the $5 billion market for infectious disease ID and AST. The application is an inpatient setting, so this is not an at-home test. It's not a physician office test. This is for severe infections like you find in a hospital. And that means the first indication we're going after is sepsis, which is an 8% increase in the risk of death per hour, a high mortality rate. It's the 10th leading cause of death in hospitals in the US. It has a frequent costly readmission. JAMA in January published that it costs $10,000 per readmission event, and the cost to treat runs between $6,000 and $45,000 on average per case. The business model for the diagnostic side is very typical razor and razor blade. What's not typical is that we also have a big data business model. Every time somebody uses our diagnostic, they generate a genomic sequence. That enters into our database. And once we have that, we have an exponentially growing database that you can use for all sorts of things. Customers can do hospital-acquired infection investigations. They can also get antibiotic stocking for us based on the data and the forecast that we could do because we have regional epidemiology data captured in our database when we get critical mass at a customer site. We can provide it to the government for surveillance. We can sell it to pharmaceutical companies because our algorithm, what it really does is it detects de novo methods of resistance that are currently not understood. Our founding team includes myself. I was a consultant at Monitor Group. I was a senior vice president of marketing and strategy at Conformis from the time it was 15 employees to about 220 employees. I've raised $140 million in funding over my career. The other co-founders include a MD PhD who's an infectious disease doctor at Mass General. He happens to be my roommate from college. Melissa is an MD PhD, Rhodes Scholar at MIT and Harvard, who's an expert in bacterial sequencing. And on the computational side, we have a PhD in applied math who did all of her dissertation work on computational techniques for analyzing how DNA folds inside of a cell, as well as a machine learning expert, again, from Harvard. We were founded in May of 2016. We raised a 500,000 friends and family round. We've done all of our science over the last year just on that 500,000 because we're just incredibly cheap. And you can, when you have PhDs who just graduated, they don't actually know how to spend money. We're raising a $3 million seed round. We've raised and closed $2 million of it. We still have $1 million left in our round. That $3 million seed round funds the prototype development for our system. So why DZD? We think we're solving a true unmet need. It's not only high cost with high mortality, but it's growing. It only gets worse over time, not better. Our team is highly accomplished. We have a holistic strategy. There's lots of other competitors that are trying to serve individual vertical slices of this problem. We're trying to create a start to finish solution that only does sample prep, gives you the data, but then tells you what to do with the data. And last but not least, we're not just building a diagnostic business, we're trying to build a diagnostic that actually enables a call option on a big data business that you would be investing in as well. Thanks.
Very good, nice job. You can hold on to that if you need it. All right, so judges, we got a couple minutes, so let's go quick.
John, very interesting technology, very innovative, I think, and I think has the potential to revolutionize some of the care, but I think some of the challenges might be around what is the evidence that you're going to develop and what is the health economic proposition, right? So today, people are doing culture at whatever cost, it's a low cost point. You have a $60,000 device, you have $200 per test. What are the health economics around this? What does it offset for a health system? What savings do they have in cost compared to current costs, right? What's the value proposition?
So culture is a very low-cost method of doing this diagnostic, but actually what's happening in the world of infectious diseases today is culture is just one part of the cost. What it's really being married with is much more expensive technology because everyone recognizes this as a problem. So culture becomes the input source for a mass spectrometry test for identification, but it only does ID. So then you have to put it through a secondary test called the VITEC2 in order to do phenotypic resistance testing. Or you might put it through a PCR system, but PCR systems, which are molecular diagnostics, are incredibly limited. They detect what they're designed to find and nothing else. So if I did a PCR in this room and I said, find me every example of somebody named John, it could tell me every single person. But if your name is Mary, it has no idea you're in the room. And that's the kind of culture diagnostic that's being done today. If you try to replicate the comprehensiveness with which we do our diagnostic, both on ID and resistance, it will cost you far more than what you can do with anything that's culture-based or PCR-based. And the ultimate economic benefit is actually the length of stay at the hospital. $6,000 per day in the ICU for a typical septic patient. We can shorten that both on the back end, but just on the front end. Instead of 5 days to get to a definitive diagnosis, we get to there in 1. So you're already cutting out 4 days times $6,000 per day just at the front end of using our diagnostic.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good if you could articulate that story of the value, right? Not only the savings in terms of number of tests that are performed now that you're all condensing into one test, but also all the other value propositions in terms of clinical outcomes.
We have time for one more question, so who wants it?
Sure.
Who hasn't gotten to go?
John, great talk. Can you talk a little bit more about your technology? How is your approach different? I think in the beginning of the talk, you also said that it's non-PCR based.
Right, you mean just in terms of the differentiation of our technology versus others. So, so actually, let me see if I took out my competitor's slides so that I can get through it on time. I still didn't quite get there. So what happens with a lot of competitor technologies is that you really face a trade-off. A lot of technologies are based in culture as the source. And anything that's based in culture is limited by time. It takes a day to get to ID. It takes 2 days to get to resistance. By that point in a severe infection, people are dying. What really has been proposed as the alternative is a lot of PCR or targeted sequencing-based diagnostics or other molecular sensor-based diagnostics. And the problem with that is that they're all very narrow. They're limited to the probes that you design. We're trying to take an unbiased agnostic approach where we're looking for all of the bacterial species that are in the patient. And so our goal is to occupy the white space where people don't trade off comprehensiveness with speed. They get both in cases where culture would grow, but also where it wouldn't, where physicians would be blind no matter what. And that's how we think about our competitive differentiation, is to sort of occupy that space that gets people out of the trade-off and gives them both.
Great, thank you very much. Great presentation, John. All right, so our last company, and then we'll vote, and then we'll go have drinks, is Kristen Johnson. So Kristen tells me that she met her husband in engineering school, right? And in thermodynamics class, right? So there was a lot of energy going on in the room, right? Okay. All right. Sorry, bad joke. Okay, here you go. 10 minutes, watch the clock over there in the corner.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much to MedTech Innovator for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. Again, my name is Kristen Johnson. I'm co-founder and CEO of Xmas Surgical. We were founded in 2014, inspired by the story of Dr. Amy Reed. Dr. Reed was an anesthesiologist and a mother of 6 children under the age of 12 when she had a minimally invasive surgery to remove her uterus through small pencil-sized incisions. She believed this was a routine procedure for benign indications, but discovered afterwards that in fact her uterus had contained an unknown cancer and that a surgical device called a power morcellator had been used to carve up and remove this large specimen through these small incisions, spreading a cancer throughout her body, and unfortunately just last week led to her death at the age of 44. But before her death, she and her husband, a surgeon, made it their mission to remove the morcellator from the market. And they were successful, with the FDA issuing a black box warning against the use of morcellators, and many hospitals no longer purchasing morcellators for surgeon use. But without morcellators, surgeons had few options for removing large specimens other than through large incisions, meaning more patient pain, more complications, and increased costs. So that's where we come in. We believe a gentler approach to specimen removal is essential, so we created X-Core. X-Core utilizes energized cutting wires that are pre-placed within a containment bag and an energy source that's already available in every OR. Let me show you how this works. The surgeon places the bag with the wires inside the patient, loads the specimen into the bag, exteriorizes the bag, and connects the wires to an instrument. The instrument applies a combination of electrical energy and mechanical tension to the wires, allowing them to pull quickly and easily through the tissue and leaving clean-cut, elongated segments behind that the surgeon can then easily reach into the bag and remove. Unlike the morcellator that was used on Dr. Reed, X-Core is fast, easy, and fully contained. Because of this, surgeon feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. We've shown this to surgeons at large academic institutions as well as community hospitals, and they've all said that they would like to adopt X-Core. Looking at other alternatives, many companies have begun developing containment bags for use with the morcellator, which surgeons have described as kludgy and time-consuming. They prefer X-Core because it's fast and easy. Hospital administrators like X-Core because it will save them time and money, potentially allowing them to perform another procedure with the same OR staff and room. And pathologists like X-Core's clean-cut segments, which will enable easier pathology. Across the board, X-Core is the preferred solution. And hospitals are under tremendous pressure to achieve the triple aim of decreasing costs while improving patient outcomes and increasing patient satisfaction. Enabled by robotics, more and more patients will have the benefits of a minimally invasive surgery, driving the need for X-Core. Looking at this macro trend, we're talking about an estimated 2.1 million patients annually where X-Core can be used, approximately half of those outside of gynecology. Looking closer at our business, we've aggressively filed IP and just recently received our second issued patent for what we believe will be a strong barrier to entry. We've also had ongoing communications with the FDA, who's given us a clear 510(k) de novo path and called X-Core exciting and the type of innovation they were looking for. And in our many years in this industry, we hadn't heard that level of enthusiasm, so we were pretty excited. We'll file our de novo application in mid-2018 and then expect approval and first revenues in early 2019. To get to market, we'll employ a very small focused sales team in the US to drive penetration and improve adoption. And with this focused sales strategy, it also allowed us to streamline manufacturing and gain the clinical evidence to support our unique value proposition. To get there, we'll also utilize our experienced team. Our team has over 65 years of medical device experience, has launched over 70 products, and has over 75 issued patents. We also have a great group of advisors, including a surgeon and biodesign fellow at Stanford, and many of our investors, 7 of whom have founded healthcare startups with a combined 6 successful exits, and 4 other industry insiders, including the former head of healthcare investing at NEA. With the help of our investors, we've raised a total of $3.4 million, including our current round of $2.1 million, the proceeds of which will be used to finalize the design, gain early manufacturing experience, and take us to our $4.5 million Series A later this year. We have a tremendous opportunity to help patients and their families, because in addition to advancing women's health, XCOR will transform specimen removal beyond gynecologic surgery, closing the loop in minimally invasive surgery for millions of patients. This is one chapter in a larger story. Thank you.
All right, so we've got about a little over 4 minutes. Go ahead, judges.
Go ahead. Great presentation. Can everybody, now you can hear me. I said, hi, great presentation. You know, the industry with all of the morcellation issues is really ripe for a change in standard of care. And along with that, healthcare organizations have to really think about the additional costs of conversion and additional costs associated with implementing a new standard of care. So can you talk a little bit about some of the additional considerations for that cost of conversion, such as training, or if there's any specialty costs that aren't apparent with the actual device itself?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we are using off-the-shelf generators. So these are energy sources that are already available in the OR, meaning that there's no additional hardware or capital equipment that a hospital has to purchase. In addition to that, we have definitely focused very much on the usability of the device and designed it in a way that even though it's a very unique cutting mechanism, the means and the interaction, the user interaction is very intuitive and fits very nicely into the clinical workflow. Literally, the only difference between what they would use with XCOR versus, for example, a specimen bag is the addition of a single connection and a push of a button. And so that's something that the surgeons have given us feedback that is very intuitive and easy.
Great job, Kristen.
Thank you.
You talked a little bit about the primary market researchers, the doctors that have talked about really wanting to adopt the product. What do you see as barriers to adoption?
Well, I think in terms of where we're going, I think that initially we're going to target the vacant morcellator market. So looking at it from the procedures where the morcellator was used, that's vacant, and I think they're really hungry for a solution, and we get told that all the time. Because the potential is far beyond the morcellator into procedures where surgeons would have never ever used the morcellator, we think that will be where we'll have, it would take a little bit more time, I think, to get to those particular markets. But literally, this could be used in any procedure where the procedure is performed in a minimally invasive manner and the specimen is larger than that incision.
I think you may have just answered my question. I was going to ask about the applicability in other settings.
Yeah, so definitely there is applicability in other organs, and again, as I mentioned, it is beyond just where the morcellators were used. So we see it a lot, just all over in terms of abdominal and even some thoracic surgeries.
Just wondering, what's the metrics of success? How do you gauge when you give this to X number of surgeons that this is working, it's effective, it's useful? What are the metrics of success?
Well, certainly usability is a big one for us, because we know that surgeons won't want to adopt it unless it's easy. So that's a big one. But then in terms of just the complications that can be caused by enlarging an incision, I think incision size, looking at reducing postoperative complications like surgical site infections, those are things that we could look at. Patient pain, we could study the amount of opioid use or other means for hospital stays. So I think there are a lot of metrics that we could utilize to evaluate the effectiveness of this type of solution and show that it really is.
Clinical study plans for those?
Yes, we do have clinical study plans. Yeah.
Great time for one more question, last question.
Is there any way that your product can be integrated into the robotic environment?
Without a doubt. And as robotics have become more and more integrated into the operating room, we think that that's important and have thought about that and definitely believe that this will integrate into any number of robotics.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great job, Kristen. Okay, thank you very much. Take that. All right, so you've heard the pitches. The time is now for us to get into the voting. So we're going to remind you here of the companies again. These are our companies: Allotrope Medical, Day Zero Diagnostics, Eximus Surgical, and Nanoware. You see the URL there up the top, bit.ly/value WSGR. You want to take out your phone or your laptop or whatever you have, a tablet, whatever will connect to the internet, a pacemaker, whatever, bit.ly/value WSGR. You may need to be on the Wi-Fi, so if you're having any trouble getting to the bit.ly connection, you may have to get on the Wi-Fi, which is Palace Meeting Rooms, and the password for that, if anyone needs that, is, who knows the password? MDC 2017. Thank you very much. So again, if for some reason you're having difficulty getting on, just go to the Wi-Fi, add the MDC 2017, and then go to that URL that you see up there, bit.ly/value WSGR. So at stake again is $25,000. The first question you will see on your list is voting for the winner. So we want to make sure you do that. And then there's 3 other questions after that. So continue. You'll have to enter your email address. That's how we make sure people don't cheat. And then most importantly, I want to make sure that everybody here is voting. So if people are having trouble voting, please let me know. Hopefully you're not, but I'd like you to raise your hand if you're having any difficulty. I'm going to vote right now. According to my phone, there's 320 seconds left to vote, so I encourage you to hurry up. I'm going to look and see if the votes are coming in 1 second. So make sure again that everybody is voting. I just voted myself, so I'm very happy about that. The questions, there are 4 questions. Second question is who can have the greatest benefit for patients? Third question will be who can offer the largest reduction in cost? And then finally, which company would you personally write a check for? And we want you to line up and write those checks after the show on your way to drinks. Okay, so now the real question is, are the votes counting? So that's always the important question. Let's take a look and see. Hold on. So everybody keep voting. Don't stop what you're doing. And I will check that, as I always do. We're running a little bit late, so I want to make sure all the votes are being tallied, because we actually cut them off after a certain time. So everybody keep voting. If anyone's having any trouble, again, let me know. Raise a hand if you're having trouble. I see maybe only a couple hands raised. Checking the results. Let's see. I'm checking my counts here. Hold on, I'm going off stage, which means I just have to double check. Hold on 1 second. Keep voting. Don't stop, I swear this is going to go really fast. I just have to check one thing. Hold on. By the way, my special fact is that I wrote all the code in our system that you're using right now. So if there's a problem, it's entirely my fault. Hold on 1 second, and I will just update one thing to make sure we're okay. On the final count, this has never happened before, but that's okay. There's a first time for everything. All right, let me save that. I'm literally changing the code and re-uploading it right now. And then I'm going to reload the page one more time to make sure we got the right numbers. Okay. Yeah, exactly. I know, right? How crazy is that? Okay, yes, we are in good shape. So I'd like our AV team, our stellar AV team, to bring up question number 2, which is, who can have the greatest benefit for patients? So let's see the result for that first. It looks like we have to maybe slide over a little bit if you could, but I will read out the result. First place by 2 votes is Eximus Surgical, so congratulations to Eximus with 57 votes, followed by Day Zero Diagnostics with 55 votes, Nanoware with 43, and then Allotrope. Question number 3, which is, who can offer the greatest, question number 3 should be, who can offer the largest reduction in cost, I believe. Just make sure. Maybe not. I know the answer. I can see it on my laptop, but I can't control the screen. We're having trouble? If we are, so, okay, well, let's just go with the greatest benefit for patients. That's fine. Did we already do that one? Yes, we did. All right, so let's go to question number 3. I can't keep track of it. All right, let's see. Well, I can read it off if we don't have it. I'd love to show it. But who can offer the greatest reduction in cost, which is question number 3. You should be able to just click that tab. Try clicking question 3 on that, or is the mouse not moving on the screen? My code is sucking up all of the memory. Okay, I'm going to hold up my laptop so you can see that who can offer the largest reduction in cost is Nanoware with 64 votes. So congratulations, Nanoware, followed by Day Zero Diagnostics, Allotrope Medical, and then finally Eximus Surgical. Question number 4, who would you personally write a check for? Goes to Eximus Surgical. Can everybody see that? Eximus Surgical with 62 votes, followed very closely by Nanoware, tied with Day Zero Diagnostics, and then right behind them, Allotrope. By the way, I love to see bars that are all pretty close like that because it tells you how good these companies are, right? That everybody, there's a nice split vote on who you want to write a check for. But of course, the most important one we need to know is, of course, who's won the $25,000 check. So I'm just looking around to make sure my team is ready. Are we ready for that? We are ready for that. Okay, the big unveil, since I'm going to have to do it again on my laptop. I wish we could zoom into my laptop. Can you guys camera in on my laptop maybe? I don't know if that can be done. That would be cool. Here, I'm going to go up. Maybe you can do that. The first place check goes to Eximus Surgical. The winner of the Value Award. Congratulations, Kristen. Followed very closely by Day Zero and Nanoware, who are almost tied on that, and then Allotrope Medical. Look, there it is. Look at that. Great job, guys. We appreciate that. Congratulations, Kristen. Fantastic job. You did an amazing job in an important space of clinical needs, so we're extremely excited that you won. Of course, all the companies, congratulations to you all. You guys all did a great job. I also want to say that David Kassik's going to be doing a profile on you in the MedTech Strategist, so we're extremely excited about that, in addition to your $25,000 check, which you should go cash immediately. I would run out and go do that. Thank you guys very much. We're going to bring Kristen up on stage for photos, and then I know our photographers literally are trying to catch a plane. Thank you guys for being part of MedTech Innovator, for contributing to the review process, for voting, for everything you guys have done. We really appreciate it, and we will see you in San Jose in September at the MedTech Conference. Thank you, everybody.